Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
I want to begin by first and foremost thanking the African Union and all the African nations for their support and their belief in Kenya being able to advocate the African cause, the cause of Pan-Africanism, the cause of peace, the cause of global solidarity, the call to multilateralism. Kenya's story is one that believes and trusts that together we are stronger. One that believes that through democracy, through respect for human life, and through unity, more can be achieved than individually. We thank the African continent for supporting us in our bid. And we thank all our friends across the world who have joined us and supported us. Today is a day for me personally, on my own behalf and on behalf of the government and the people of Kenya, to assure you that a vote for Kenya is a vote for peace. A vote for Kenya is a vote for global solidarity. A vote for Kenya is a vote for multilateralism. A vote for Kenya is that even the smallest voice shall be heard as the largest and most powerful voice. Let's work together. Let's build global harmony. Let's move forward in our march for peace. Let's move forward in our march for the sustainable use of the resources that our continent, our globe, is endowed with. And let's move forward and ensure that no one is left behind.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to join me again this wonderful, sunny, lovely afternoon here in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa. The show is Diaspora Dispatches, where, as usual, we get to look at the news-making headlines across the continent. Earlier on in the morning, we were looking at the news-making headline in Kenya, and also at around mid-morning there and early afternoon, we were looking at we looked at another show that we focused on South Sudan and the current situation there in South Sudan, and if at all the peace process there is holding in the fragile sick child of Africa, the last born here in Africa. South Sudan has been troubled since it got its independence, just 2 years after getting its independence there. In 2011, then in 2013, the country was plunged into a civil war, and so we were looking at how far the peace process that was signed in February has it been holding, what has been happening there in South Sudan with a lot of things coming up. AU has sanctioned South Sudan over what it owes the AU over $9 million US dollars, and They want South Sudan to pay for this. East Africa community is demanding about $24 million from South Sudan. And so we were looking, maybe perhaps it is time these bodies, forgave South Sudan these debts so that they continue to include it in some of these conversations that, are about South Sudan. So it was a very wonderful conversation that we had here earlier. So thank you so much for joining us right now. We shall be looking at the rest of the news making headlines across the continent. But before that, just the statistics, as it stands right now, Kenya, earlier on we said we stand at 4,474 cases. The death toll in the country right now is at 121. Recoveries is at 1,586. And remember, it's just a few minutes past 3 p.m. That means the Ministry of Health is about to give its daily briefing. So these figures from Kenya will change in a short bit. Uganda, there are 770 cases with recoveries right now standing at 578, quite impressive. And Zambia, confirmed cases at 1,430. The death toll is 11. Recoveries right now is at 1,194. And Zimbabwe, 474 confirmed cases. 4 people have died, and recoveries right now is at 63. And South Sudan, confirmed cases is 1,882. The death toll in the country is 36, and recoveries in South Sudan right now is at 122. And Sudan, 8,580 cases have been confirmed, with 521 people dying and 3,325 others recovering. And Ethiopia, 4,469 cases. The death toll is 72. Recoveries is 1,122. Madagascar, the cases also have gone up there at 1,507. The death toll is 13, and recoveries is at 613. And Congo, Brazzaville, 883 cases. The death toll is 27. Recoveries is 391. And the Democratic Republic of Congo, there the figures right now is at 5,672 cases. The death toll in the DRC is 125. Recoveries is 807. And Guinea, confirmed cases is 4,960. The death toll is 27. And also the recoveries right now stands at 3,630. And Rwanda, confirmed cases is 702. 2 people have died. Recoveries is 357. And South Africa right now, they are pushing to 93,000, and they're closer. They're at 92,683 cases, and the death toll is 1,877. Recoveries is over 50,000. And Egypt, which I believe has the highest number of deaths in the continent, with the death toll they are standing at 2,106, but the number of confirmed cases is 53,758, and recoveries is 14,327. And Burundi, we mentioned these figures early in the morning. The cases right now is at 144. 1 person has died, 93 others have recovered, which is not too bad. Majority of those people have recovered there. And Nigeria, 19,808, and I'm sure these figures right now have changed, and the death toll is over 500, and recoveries is almost 7,000 there. And Ghana, the figures 13,000 and over 13,717. 85 people have died, and recoveries is at 10,074. And Algeria, cases at 11,631. The death toll is 837. Recoveries is 8,324. And Tunisia, which I think is just one of the most successful cases when it comes to the dealing of COVID-19 and just bringing it under control there. Tunisia has done so well compared to other countries there in the northern part of Africa, and because the government there was able to arrest the spread of COVID-19 and put in measures very, very quickly, that really has helped in curbing the spread of COVID-19 there in Tunisia. The confirmed cases at 1,156. The death toll is 50, and recoveries is at 1,017. I think nearly just a very few people there are still receiving treatment, come to think of it. So maybe around 100 or so people there or less receiving treatment there in Tunisia. So that is some very good news there. So the total cases in Africa right now is at 297,028, and these figures I'm sure has changed. We prepared this a bit earlier, and the number of deaths in Africa are nearing 8,000, and recoveries in the continent is at around 142,650. All right, so that is that. And in case I've missed out from your country, you can just give me the update here, the latest update from wherever you're watching me from, and I will be happy to share with the rest of our viewers across the globe. Thank you so much. As I said earlier, this is Diaspora Dispatches, and what we do here is we focus on news making headlines, not just in Kenya, but across the continent and indeed abroad. So thank you. And with that, I'd like for us to go straight to the news as per a few hours ago, the latest from Africa. And we start with Nigeria, where Nigerian doctors have ended a nationwide strike that was called to protest against the lack of protective gear to handle COVID-19 patients. The National Association of Resident Doctors, which represents some 40% of the Nigerian doctors, said it called off the strike to give the government time to act on its demands. The week-long strike ended today morning, according to a statement quoted by local media. The association said some hospitals had since been supplied with protective gear, and the government had promised to provide more. It also said the government had promised to address the demand for better welfare for resident doctors. And then we move to Malawi, where Malawians return to the polls. That is Tuesday tomorrow for a rerun of the presidential election 5 months after the Constitutional Court annulled the results of a disputed vote last year. Incumbent President Peter Mutharika had initially been declared the winner of the May 2019 election with a slim victory of 38.5%. But opposition leaders challenged the results in court, citing massive irregularities. Judges agreed with them and nullified the results in February and ordered a repeat of the election. Now the opposition has now united under a single candidate and will take on President Mutharika, who is running for a second term in office. Now for months now, Malawians had been under political crisis unlike any other they have faced in their history. It's been more than a year since they turned out in their millions to vote in a new parliament and president. And as Malawians will be going to the elections tomorrow, we shall be here to break it down for you. And tomorrow we shall talk more about these elections in Malawi and why it is very important for the people of Malawi, and why the cancellation of President Mutharika's election was quite historic, especially here in the continent. So we shall look in depth tomorrow when Malawians will be going to the elections, to the polls. We shall talk about that tomorrow in details. All right. And we go to Somalia, where soldiers in the Somali capital Mogadishu have ended their protest over unpaid salaries. They had blocked roads in the city on Saturday, with some saying they had not received wages in over a year. Local television footage showed troops blocking vehicles from the African Union peacekeeping force from passing. Now the soldiers are fighting the militant Islamist group Al-Shabaab, who said they carried out 1 or 2 attacks this weekend, killing at least 7 people. Now soldiers, Somali soldiers there, they're protesting against, over unpaid salaries there. And so what was happening on Saturday, they even tried to block the African Union peacekeeping mission troops there. That is very, very dangerous situation there in Somalia. So I'm hoping that that is a situation that President Farmajo will have to address. You do not want to mess up the security of a country. You're having, your soldiers protest over unpaid salaries. That is very, very dangerous. And they are blocking the motorcade of AU, a peacekeeping mission there. All right, that's a very precarious situation there, and so I'm hoping that President Farmajo will deal with that, because that is not the situation you want Somalia to find itself. Its security apparatus, it's already very fragile. So now the soldiers are out there protesting over unpaid salaries, and they're blocking the AU peacekeeping mission there, blockade, but of course temporarily. That is not very good. President Farmajo, please deal with that. All right. And we move to Zimbabwe, where Zimbabwean authorities say people who cannot explain where their wealth came from are in danger of having their assets seized, even if courts clear them of corruption allegations. The new operation as intensive lifestyle audit of the rich, said the chairman of the Zimbabwean Anti-Corruption Commission, Justice Lois Matanda Moyo. Now, the country is facing its worst economic crisis in more than a decade. There is mounting public anger over poor services and corruption. And this is what Justice Matanda Moyo told the Zimbabweans Sunday News. She said, this is an intense lifestyle audit on some of the rich people. They have to produce their invoices on what goods or services they rendered, and this has to match the value of their acquired properties. We will also be checking if these people or these businesses were paying taxes there. So this lifestyle audit or an intensive lifestyle audit there in Zimbabwe. President Uhuru Kenyatta had imagined that Kenya should have one a couple of months ago. That was met with a lot of mixed reactions there, especially from the political class in the country. So I don't know how that will be welcomed there in Zimbabwe, but they moved swiftly to the DRC. And a post has been circulating falsely claiming that 2018 Nobel laureate Dr. Denis Mukwege resigned from COVID-19 response teams in DR Congo because he had been ordered to declare illnesses and deaths to be coronavirus related even when they were not. He has resigned, but not for the reasons being claimed. The false post was published on Facebook on 16th of June and was widely shared, with screenshots being shared on WhatsApp too. And this is what he said. This is what the post claimed, that the Nobel Peace Prize winner had said that I cannot in any case dirty my Nobel Peace Prize for money. We had been ordered to declare any illness to be coronavirus and any deaths. So now, Dr. Mukwege has been serving in two teams set up to coordinate the response to the COVID-19 pandemic in the South Kivu province in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo for the past 2 years. He announced his resignation on 10th June, saying lack of laboratories for testing for the virus had frustrated his work. He also cited a lax attitude to social distancing or other measures among the population, porous borders, and the return of the thousands of DR Congo citizens from neighboring countries without having been quarantined. He said that decreased the effectiveness of the team's strategy. All right. I think I also came across that a post that now Dr. Denis Mukwege is claiming to have been fake there. And then we head back to Nigeria, where a former United States National Security Advisor says President Donald Trump once argued that the 1.5 billion aid given to Nigeria annually should be stopped, while funding for military operations in Afghanistan and Syria should also be cut. The former NSA, John Bolton, stated this in his highly anticipated book titled In the Room Where It Happened. Now, Bolton, who left Trump's administration last year, said the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, had confirmed that indeed Nigeria was receiving a lot of money from the U.S. annually. Trump, however, lamented that despite all the money Nigeria was receiving from the U.S., Nigeria was still refusing to buy American agricultural produce. All right, Nigerians, are you watching? Let me know what you think of that. That information is a part of this highly anticipated book by former official in the Trump's administration, Mr. John Bolton. It has caused, ruffled a bit of some feathers, not very nicely there. And now we see also Nigeria, forms part of his book. They're saying that the U.S. gives a lot of money to Nigeria, and President Buhari is also saying, is also said to have confirmed that indeed Nigeria receives a lot of money from the U.S. But Trump is mad because he's saying, Nigeria, as much as you're receiving so much money from the U.S. Taxpayers, you're not buying enough of the agricultural produce from the U.S., so you're supposed to be, returning a hand. So if you receive the $1.5 billion US annually, then you're supposed to be buying a lot of, agricultural produce from Nigeria. I would imagine every country in Africa, or majority, a country like Nigeria really, I'm assuming serious farming happens there. So I don't know what kind of agricultural produce Nigeria is supposed to be, importing from the United States. Please let me know. I have no idea. We move to Egypt, where Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has ordered his army to be ready to carry out missions inside or outside the country to protect its national security amid tensions over Turkey's intervention in neighboring Libya. He also warned forces loyal to the internationally recognized government of the National Accord in Tripoli not to cross the current front line between them and renegade commander Khalifa Haftar's eastern-based self-styled Libyan National Army. All right, and we move to Mali, where the chairman of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mohamed, has urged President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and opposition groups to work together to end the political crisis in the West African country. Opposition groups are calling for President Keïta to resign because of escalating jihadist and intercommunal violence in the country. Now, the president had pledged to form a new government with opposition members, and the African Union chief, in a statement, praised the peaceful character of the protest and encouraged both government and opposition to avoid the use of violence in any form. It's very interesting that Mr. Moussa Faki would find it, will find it necessary to comment on this. Of course, he's the chair of the African Union, but I've seen a lot of cases across the continent that would require his attention, but he's been very blind to some situations, the way AU has been in a lot of situations in this continent. So, all right, we move to South Sudan. The South Sudan Opposition Alliance is divided over the recent deal that allocated Jonglei State to the coalition. The chairperson of the Secretary General have both issued conflicting statements. The chairperson and the Secretary General, have both issued conflicting statements regarding the new deal on the allocation of states on Wednesday. The principals of the peace accord, President Salva Kiir and Vice Chair President Dr. Riek Machar, agreed to allocate the states to each party to the revitalized peace agreement. They offered 6 states to the SPLM and 3 states to the SPLM-IO. The opposition alliance was awarded a Jonglei State as its share, while Upper Nile was given the SPLM-IO. But on Thursday, the chairperson of the alliance issued a statement rejecting the new deal, saying it was not part of the decision. So basically, President Salva Kiir and his deputy there, you're being told that you did not consult, all right? We move to Cameroon. The Cameroon's Prime Minister and Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Dion Ngute, has issued a decree creating a number of bilingual colleges in some regions of the country. The regions concerned are Adenauer, Center, Far North, Littoral, and Western regions. In another decree still issued on Friday, June 19th, some bilingual colleges in the Adamawa, East, Far North, Littoral, and North and West regions have been transformed into public schools. If you understand the problem and the crisis that has been going on in Cameroon by Anglophones and the government of Cameroon there, they will understand why even this is happening. And if you're watching me from Cameroon or from the area, the Anglophone region, let me know what these changes means and what kind of impact or implications it will have to that region and the peace process there and the crisis between the Anglophones and the government of Mr. Paul Biya. All right, and we move to Nigeria and matters Biafra, and former Niger Delta militant leader Asari Dokubo on Friday spoke again on the Biafran agitation. He called the leaders of the indigenous people of Biafra Nnamdi Kanu. I'll not say that word, but it was not a very kind word. And so he said the ex-leader of the Niger Delta People's Volunteer Force and pro-Biafran alleged that Kanu's faction was promoting religious intolerance. He said Kanu's followers threatened to kill Christians and Muslims in the proposed country and make Biafra a Jewish state. Okay, now Dokubo declared that he could not work with such people, noting that all of us are Biafrans. He said a set of Biafrans now decide that they have the right of life and death over all of us, and that they are going to kill all Christians, and that they are going to close down all churches. I don't know what is happening there, but if you're watching me and you're from the Biafra, or you're from Nigeria, and this thing by the former Niger Delta militant leader Asari Dokubo, he's saying that Nnamdi Kanu has taken over, the agitation for Biafra, and he's saying that he also does not mean well for the people of Biafra, because he's saying, according to this person, that judging from what Nnamdi Kanu is agitating for, that Biafra will be a Jewish state. So in essence, he's saying that Nnamdi Kanu, once Biafra becomes a country, if at all the government of Nigeria will allow for a referendum, and then he's now alluding that Nnamdi Kanu is planning to kill Christians and Muslims so that he establishes a Jewish state. These are very careless statements here, if you ask me. And things like this, I think, work against the agitation there by Biafrans. If you're watching, please let me know what you make of these, allegations or all these comments by this leader here, the former Niger Delta militant leader Asari Dokubo. Let me know what you think. And he called, Nnamdi Kanu some names there. I can't say them on air, but let me know. But he did not have any kind words for Nnamdi Kanu there, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. So now, this news over here, I don't know who thought this was going to be a good idea anyway. But we cross over to South Africa. And South Africa's former president, F.W. de Klerk, has withdrawn from a U.S. seminar where he was to speak on the rule of law, racism, and minority rights. Now, his foundation said the former apartheid leader did not want to embarrass himself or his host, American Bar Association, in the current charged racial climate. Now, South African media said the withdrawals after several rights groups opposed his participation. The de Klerk Foundation said the allegation that he was involved in gross violation of human rights was baseless. Now, the American Bar Association has since confirmed his withdrawal from the 1st of July event. And Mr. de Klerk was the head of South Africa's white minority government until 1994. And in February, Mr. de Klerk apologized. Remember, early in February, he apologized for quibbling over whether or not apartheid was a crime against humanity. During a television interview, the remarks fueled a row that revealed old apartheid wounds. According to de Klerk, he feels that apartheid was very proper. Apartheid was in order, and apartheid does not amount anyhow to crimes against humanity. So we shall talk about this, this news here. I don't know who thought it will be a good idea for F.W. de Klerk to go and speak in a seminar that seeks to address the rule of law, racism, and minority rights. Like, what does he know about these three things? Let me just finish, the last story, and then we can look at this story, because I just don't understand who thought this was going to be a brilliant idea. And we go to Ivory Coast, where former Ivorian President Henry Konan Bédié will seek a return to the presidency in keenly awaited poll slated for October 2020. Bédié, who was president from 1993 until 1999 when he was overthrown in a coup, he will contest as a flag bearer of the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire. In a statement to announce his return, his party officials urged him to stand as a candidate at the nomination convention slated for the 26th of July next month. One of his potential challengers, businessman Jean-Louis Billon, withdrew his candidacy in favor of Bédié. Now, if he is handed the ticket, his main opponent for now will be outgoing Alassane Ouattara's party candidate, Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly. All right. Now, this man, who was once a president of Ivory Coast, but he's deciding to run again this year, he is 85 years old, and he will deploy the potential of young people if he's given another chance to lead the West African country. Bédié backed Ouattara into previous elections, but withdrew his party from the ruling coalition in 2018 when Ouattara said a new constitution adopted in 2016 could allow him a third term. All right. So that is the latest information or news making headlines across Africa this afternoon. I don't know, a lot of interesting things are happening. Let me just read a few of your comments, and then we shall just get into that, a few of these stories that are really, I really want us to talk about. All right. And let me know where you're watching us from. And Mike Napo, you're saying, God, good day. A good day to you too, and thank you for watching. Isosa Erun Idaho, you're saying one good turn deserves another. All right. In what story is that? Oh, you're saying that story from Nigeria, where President Trump now, according to Joel Bolton, this book he's working on, is saying President Trump was complaining about the amount of money that is being given to Nigeria annually, in tune of about 1.9 billion US dollars, and President Trump was complaining that this money, as much as it is being given to Nigeria, but Nigeria in return is supposed to be buying agricultural produce from the US. And I'm thinking agriculture is the backbone of a lot of countries in Africa. So I was just wondering, what kind of agricultural produce would you think Nigeria would be interested in importing from the US? Let me know. Let me know, Nigerians. What is it? What kind of agricultural produce is an African country supposed to be exporting from the US? All right, so President Trump is complaining, and he's saying the US is giving you a lot of its taxpayers' money, in tune of 1.9 billion US dollars annually. But Nigeria is not being a very good partner, because Nigeria is supposed to be buying in return its agricultural produce. What I know is a lot of US agricultural produce goes to China, if I'm not very wrong. So when they were having their own tariff wars there, a lot of farmers in the US were very affected, because a lot of their produce goes to China and other places. So it's quite interesting there. And I saw Sairun, again, you're saying international religious sentiment is what's destroying and killing Africa. Okay, Manuel Malwal, you're saying, Miriam, there is always betrayal in South Sudan House since the peace agreement signed in Khartoum, Sudan. Okay, and Zeda Tinong, you're saying, I'm watching from Cameroon. That country is a joke, and that's they are opposed to handle, which is the Anglophone crisis. They can't solve. They're creating useless commissions for bilingualism, and bilingualism more important than lives of people dying every day. And I think this formed the basis last year when President Paul Biya announced that he was going to have for the national dialogue. Remember that national dialogue that happened there end of September last year and carried out towards the early October, and was supposed to find a solution to the ongoing crisis between the government of Cameroon and the Anglophones. And the way that national dialogue was designed became a complete joke, because the people who were supposed to be sitting there and having serious conversations and pleading their points or their case on behalf of especially the Anglophones were not present. Majority of them are now serving life sentences there in the jails in Cameroon after they were meted with lifetime jail terms there. So it's quite interesting, the leaders of Anglophone. So when this national dialogue was taking place in Cameroon, essentially the warring side, the important voices that are supposed to be heard, the people who really are in the forefront of fighting and agitating for a cessation for the Anglophone people, were not there to represent their people there, and because they're in jail. The cases were heard in the middle of the night. It was decided, and I have never heard anywhere in the world, except for that one time, even that case that happened after Kabila's father was assassinated, it happened in a military court, because the military, apparently a lot of them were involved. So that's why. But even that was a kangaroo court, all right, and the manner in which those hearings were made was just out of order. But now in Cameroon, these are civilians. They were tried in the middle of the night, tried in a military court, in a martial court. That shouldn't be the case. The military court tries the military, period, the disciplined forces. I have never heard It has never happened anywhere in the world where you'll find civilians being tried in a martial court. So that is what happened there in Cameroon. And so the leaders of Anglophone were given life sentences. Right now, it is being appealed. It has not been successful. And so when the Prime Minister there of Cameroon comes out and say, so now the government is introducing bilingual, classes there or schooling there in Cameroon. It's quite interesting, and he's saying some bilingual colleges in the Adamawa, East, Far North, Littoral, North and West regions have been transformed into public schools. What you need to understand is that schools in the Anglophone region have not been in session since about 4 years ago. They have been closed down. Others have been burnt down. The villages there, women and children have ran away. They are either in refugee camps somewhere or in forest somewhere. So the schools there, I don't know which schools here. The government of Cameroon is trying to convert to whatever it is that they want to do with that, because they're not schools as we speak currently right now. If the schools are not burnt down, they're non-existent. And the schools that the Anglophones had started private tuitioning for their children, even those the government closed down. So essentially right now in the Anglophone region, there's no schooling happening. And I've always, wondered what will happen to this generation of the Anglophone children. While the other side is continuing, the other children from the other side, the Francophone side of Cameroon, is continuing with their education, with their lives as usual. These children are denied an opportunity. And as they grow together with their age mates from the other side, and you'll expect for them to fight for equal opportunities, how will that work? Well, the other side is much advantaged compared to this. But if you read and you go through the news from Cameroon, even the Francophone side is not very comfortable. And a lot of young people now are getting agitated with the leadership of Mr. Paul Biya, who has been in power for 37 years, for crying out loud. He's 87 years old. He cannot hold his eyes open in a meeting for 15 minutes because he's tired and he needs to go rest. But he has refused, and he said he will stay there. I guess he will die in power. I'm not sure. But that is the situation there in Cameroon. Quite unfortunate. So by, the Prime Minister speaking about introducing a bilingual program there in those areas in the Anglophone region, and yet the schools there are not even in operation. It's quite baffling. Can they ensure that these children go to school? Can they ensure, even as the situation, they're trying to find a solution and the crisis persists there in the Anglophone region, can they ensure that the children there are taken care of? Because these kids, you will expect them to compete the children from the other side of Cameroon who are going to school, whose lives have not been affected. Even in coronavirus, the government said, you go back to school, and they have been in, I think they resumed school on the 1st of June, so the classes there have resumed. But this other side, nothing is happening. Matter of fact, even Doctors Without Borders vacated the areas of the Northwest region because they're saying, the conditions there and the structures there even have them more exposed to COVID-19. So nothing much is happening there. It's a godforsaken area there, the Anglophone. So President, Paul Biya should come out and address these matters and address the issue of these people, the children in that region going back to school, and not worry too much about bilingual, because those are some of the things that were supposed to be looked at during last year's national dialogue that I said earlier there became just was ridiculous, because Paul Biya's government was dialoguing by itself, because the people who were supposed to be coming in on the other side of the table, those people are somewhere in jail right now serving a life sentence. So he was just having, whatever he did was just a formality. And also it received a lot of criticism even from the international community that cited the lack of willingness by President Paul Biya's government to really find a lasting solution in the crisis there involving the Anglophone and also the government of Paul Biya. So the situation there in Cameroon is quite dire. So Zeda Tionong, thank you so much for that. Chinedu Chime, thank you. And thank you for watching. And Dundi Ume, I haven't seen your name here in a long time. Thank you. Nice to see you. And you're saying, Asari Dokugbo is former militant. He is not a freedom fighter, and he was a betrayal against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB. And he's not important and contribute nothing towards Biafra restoration instead of working against Biafra. So you're So this guy, can we talk about him? All right, where is that story now? Good. Here. So Mr. Asari Nokudbo, right? So he came out and called Nnamdi Kanu names. I can't say them here. I said them earlier. And he called Nnamdi Kanu names, and he said that the ex-leader, he said that Kanu's fraction was promoting religious intolerance. He said Kanu's followers threatened to kill Christians and Muslims in the proposed country and make Biafra a Jewish state. Also, he said he declared that he could not work with such people, noting that all of us are Biafran. So he's saying Nnamdi Kanu is trying to divide people along religious intolerance grounds, and he said also that a set of Biafrans now decide that they have the right of life and death over all of us, that they are going to kill all Christians, and that they're going to close down all churches. And as I said earlier, those are very dangerous and dire sentiments there. I hope that they're founded. I wonder, but Biafrans, I know a lot of you are watching me right now. I don't know what you make of this. I see, Ndundi Ume, you don't agree with the sentiments there of the former Niger Delta militant leader. And you said he was a militant leader. Yes, he was a militant leader, former. I don't know if he has reformed now. His name is Asari Dakubo William Aja. You're saying you're watching from Tennessee, United States. I hope that you're safe. All those protests that have been happening there in the U.S. Has really contributed to a spike of cases there of coronavirus. The U.S. and also Brazil. Also, they've been protesting for the economy to be opened. And guess who has been leading this protest? The president himself, another idiot. So, we go, Dennis Ikachoy, you're saying, talk about Egypt and Ethiopia dispute on the dam, India versus China on Galwan Heights boundary. I saw that story of India versus China. I'll not get into that. But Egypt and Ethiopia dispute on the dam. So Egypt started raising questions about the Grand Renaissance Dam, right? The hydroelectric dam that Ethiopia was building. And Egypt started raising questions when this dam was 70% done. All right, so Egypt is worried that by the diversion of the water into that dam will lessen the water that Egypt now, the supply of water for Egypt. And Ethiopia, of course, is seeking to, solve its electricity crisis there. So they have been involved in a tussle, and Sudan also has been involved in this, has been trying to be in the middle and try to talk this out, but without much success. I remember earlier this year, the U.S. President Donald Trump, or the government in the U.S., was the one who, Al-Sisi, while he was the chairperson of African Union, forwarded this matter to the U.S. so that the U.S. could mediate. A chairman of the African Union. This is a dispute that involves two African countries. And he was the chairman of the African Union. So instead of finding a problem here in the continent, because this is a dispute, a misunderstanding, or whatever it is between two African countries, Al-Sisi, in his full capacity as the chairperson of the African Union, forwarded this matter to the United States to mediate. Of course, the United States, they've been working with Egypt, sided with Egypt. So Ethiopia was not very happy. And even right now, Ethiopia has threatened that it will pull out of these talks if Egypt, attempts to do what. So I even said it last week. There's no way. Have you seen the dam is complete, and soon they'll start filling water in it? Have you seen the Renaissance Dam from the Ethiopian side? It is complete, and there's no way such an investment, it will sit there, because Egypt does not want for water to be diverted to go there. I don't see Ethiopia stopping the project. It's complete. So I don't know. I don't know if what Egypt will be left to do, because this is something now that has now been involved in a lot of geopolitical situations, and other countries are coming in to influence and all that. Sudan has just been caught in the middle there, because initially it was the talks involved Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt, but the problem really was between Egypt and Ethiopia. So we talked about this last week. Dennis Ikachoy. I don't see Ethiopia stopping filling that dam. After all that investment. And then Egypt, why did it wait until the project was about 70% complete? And that's when President Fattah al-Sisi came out and said, we have a problem with this hydroelectric dam, Renaissance, the Great Renaissance Dam that Ethiopia is building. They should have raised the concern from the start. All right, because something like that, I'm sure the information was out there before even the construction had started. So after it was 70% done, that's when Egypt came out and said, we have a problem. And that, I think, was way too gone. And I don't think Ethiopia never stopped. And Ethiopia, I don't think, will stop. And Ethiopia said it will start filling in the dam very, very soon. So there we go. So let's see how that they will deal with that. And of course, the negotiations that were being led there by the US that were quite biased went nowhere, and that is where we are right now. And Uche Omar, you're saying, please look into the history of Asari Dokubo before listening to what he says. All right, thank you. I'm not listening to what he says. I'm just reporting what he says. Okay? Are we clear? Uche, I'm just reporting. It's the news. I'm reporting what he said, and then I need to know what you think. All right, me, I'm just reporting. Okay, thank you. So Chichi Jethro, you're saying Prince Nnamdi Kanu never said he will kill Muslims and Christians and made Biafra a geostate. All right, so obviously Asari Dokubo there. Is it Dokubo? Not Dokubo. You're calling him Dokubo. It's Dokubo. And Chika answer, you're saying Mazi Nnamdi Kanu never say that he will kill all Christians in Nigeria or make Biafra a Jewish nation. All right, there you go. William Aja, invite our leader, Nnamdi Kanu, to your program. Desmond Abawaru, you're saying hi, good day, and good day to you. And Joseph Otto, you're saying greetings from Denmark. Miriam, South Sudanese administrative errors just comes after the other child soldiers, foreign regional errors, etc. Pathetic being sanctioned by AU. Yeah, that sanctioning by AU, if you ask me, I think is very unnecessary. So AU is sanctioning South Sudan, and then what? South Sudan cannot afford to pay 9.2, is it 9.1 million US dollars. South Sudan cannot afford that right now. So they better find ways to still have South Sudan participate in AU matters, and then they can find ways of South Sudan paying later, or maybe just remove that, write off that bill, because South Sudan has no check to write to pay a 9 million, US dollars money there that is owing African Union. Where does African Union think South Sudan is going to get money? South Sudan they live on donor money, donor funding. They live on food donations. The situation is very dire in South Sudan, and then you add on top of that, the looting by public officials there, even the little resources the country have. Although in the morning while we're having this conversation, a lot of South Sudanese came out and said, hey, South Sudan is rich. The problem is the leadership and the lack of accountability and structures in place that will ensure there's transparency in how the money that is meant to be for public use is actually accounted for. But South Sudan, in essence, is not poor, but it has been looted dry. And so that is the situation the country finds itself right now. So it's quite sad. Yeah, the child soldier thing, I don't even want to talk about it, because they'll start bringing those images here, and that really upsets me. I don't like seeing those children in combat and guns their size. That really, I don't like to see that. Desmond Abawura, you're saying invite our supreme leader. Okay, William Aja saying, I've been asking for this one favor. Could you invite our leader? All right. Okay, I see the petition. I'll pass it over to to Dr. Matsanga, and then he will do the honors. I'm sure he can find a way. Lawrence Eka is saying, Doctor, it is people like you we need in Africa. I will join you down the road. Doctor is not here. How about people like me? But thank you. I'll pass that information to him. Thank you so much for watching. All right, William, nice to know you're safe. All right, keep writing. And mind you do, please let me know where you're watching us from. Godson Chukuma, you're saying this is an allegation against leader of indigenous people of Biafra. And so, all right, and William Aja, you continue there with, asking if Nnamdi Kanu can be invited on the show. All right, I'll pass that to Dr. Matsanga, and then he can see what to do with that information, all right? Thank you so much. So obviously, you all agree that Asari Dakobo is wrong on this one. You all are saying that there's no way that Nnamdi Kanu is promoting religious intolerance, as Asari had alleged. And he's saying, because he said that Nnamdi Kanu is trying to divide people on religious grounds, and he's saying he also alleged that Nnamdi Kanu is trying to kill, intends, after the formation of Biafra land, as you guys call it, he said that Nnamdi Kanu is intending to kill all Christians and Muslims. Like, how is that even possible? You know. So quite interesting there, but I see you all are not agreeing with sentiments here of the former Niger Delta militant leader, Asari Dakobo. Now, let's just put that aside. But, you can keep writing me and I'll come back. I'll revisit that matter and let me know what you think of it. So now let's talk Africa. Can we gather together and have this conversation? Because now, something is just not right. And as I said there earlier, I don't know whose idea was this, to invite the former South Africa's president, F.W. de Klerk, for a U.S. seminar where he was to speak on the rule of law, on racism, on minority rights. These very same things that he was in the forefront in abusing, in curtailing. When he was the president in South Africa, he is the last white minority, president in South Africa before, he led the country until 1994 when Mandela became the first black president. So now I don't understand. So Mr. or former President F.W. de Klerk has withdrawn from a seminar where he was to speak in the U.S., where he was, and it's only the U.S. that they could invite Mr. de Klerk. It's only the U.S. who would think it's even appropriate. It's only in the U.S. where somebody would even sit down and imagine this is even remotely okay for them to invite de Klerk to come and lecture the U.S. American Bar Association about the rule of law, about racism, and about minority rights. Now, this is the same person who earlier this year caused a lot of controversy when he said he did not see anything wrong with apartheid that he led, that happened under his watch as the president, that happened so many years, happened under his watch as part of the system, and then later on becoming the president in South Africa. He came out and said, I don't see anything wrong with apartheid, and apartheid does not amount to any human rights violations because it has been categorized like that. So de Klerk, for those who are wondering why that was not appropriate, I don't understand. I don't even understand who thought this was going to be a very good idea. So Frederick William de Klerk served as state president of South Africa from 1989 after another leader, the leader before him, both resigned in 1999, and he served between 1989 to 1994 as the deputy president from 1994 to 1996. So even after, the president, the first black president there, Nelson Mandela, became the president, de Klerk became his vice president, but he was initially the last white president, right? I know. It does not even make sense at all. So as South Africa's last head of state from the era of white minority rule, he and his government dismantled the apartheid system and introduced a universal suffrage. Ideologically a conservative and an economic liberal, he led a national party from 1989 to 1997. Now, as a minister, he supported and enforced apartheid, a system of racial segregation that privileged white South Africans. We already know that. Now, after Botha resigned in 1989, de Klerk replaced him first as a leader of the National Party and then as a state president. Although observers expected him to continue Botha's defense of apartheid, de Klerk decided to end the policy. And this was after pressure from international community and also from South Africa itself. Time for liberation was so ripe. So de Klerk did not have a policy. So it's not like he woke up one morning and he said, apartheid is so wrong. So now we need to end this so that the black South Africans, the native of the land, can get to lead themselves. That is not what happened. It is the pressure that was mounting during that time. So he was aware that growing ethnic animosity and violence was leading South Africa into a racial civil war. Amid this violence, the state security forces committed widespread human rights abuses and encouraged violence between Xhosa and Zulu, although de Klerk later denied sanctioning such actions. That divide and rule, all right. So he permitted anti-apartheid marches to take place, apparently, legalized a range of previously banned anti-apartheid political parties, and freed imprisoned anti-apartheid activists, including Nelson Mandela. Also, he dismantled South Africa's nuclear weapons program. I don't know, but blacks in South Africa, South Africans, the majority black South Africans had enough. So they were marching and agitating and wanting for them to be free and for them to have a democratic country and for them to have a black leader, basically. So I don't know how they make it look like de Klerk, was the savior during that time of apartheid. So my problem is de Klerk, who supported and enforced apartheid, who was part of the system that promoted racial segregation for the privileged white South Africans. How this person that promoted racism, brazen attack on human rights, this person that saw the majority of black South African children being murdered, agitating for their rights for a quality education, this person that was there when all these dark things happened, and he was part of the system even before he became the president. How is it that the American Bar Association would think he will be the right person to come give a lecture on racism, on the rule of law, and the minority rights? I do not understand. Who even thought remotely this would be okay? So, of course, that received a lot of backlash in South Africa there, and they could not let that go by. So the ABA confirmed de Klerk could no longer speak at the event, and the death of black man George Floyd under the knee of a U.S. police officer last month has triggered a wave of anti-racism protests around the world. And this is what they said at a time like this, where the whole world is crying out for recognition and demanding the value be placed on our lives, on black lives. We think that ABA erred in inviting someone like de Klerk, obviously. And, Fort Kalata said that. So de Klerk's foundation defended his legacy of helping South Africa's transition from white minority rule to non-racial constitutional democracy, and for being the only world leader to dismantle an existing nuclear arsenal. But almost 30 years after apartheid's demise, de Klerk's role remains highly contested in South Africa, one of the world's most unequal societies where class and race issues constantly bubble under the surface. Now, earlier this year, de Klerk, an octogenarian who shared the Nobel Peace Prize with South Africa's first democratically elected President Nelson Mandela, also faced a backlash when he told the national broadcaster he did not believe apartheid was a crime against humanity, as declared by the United Nations. Yeah. So this is the person that the American Bar Association, is that what they're called? Yeah, American Bar Association thought would come lecture them about the rule of law, about racism, about minority rights. I don't know what de Klerk knows about minority rights, because the last time I checked, when you even watch documentaries and you see the lifestyle there in South Africa, the white people, the minorities, still live far much better lives than the majority black people there, and the racial class and segregation is still there, not quite loud, but it's still quite there, and it's still quite evident. So these are still things that South Africa is dealing with, and the blacks, especially the majority of the young people there, when they can't deal, what they do is now they turn on their other African brothers and sisters there, and we've been seeing that through the the xenophobia attacks that has been witnessed in South Africa for the last few times. So Godson Chukuma, you're saying this is an allegation against leader of indigenous people of Biafra. And who else here? Chika Asa, you're saying Nigeria is a scam with terrorists in power. Do you know how many people that is being killed on that useless country? Okay. Lawrence Eka, you're saying, Miriam, okay, thank you so much. I can't possibly ignore you. And I will talk. You know what? Thank you. Thank you for watching. Keep watching. And hey, Annie Dawn, you're saying, and nice to see you. He's one of our top watchers here, and I haven't seen you here for a while. Thank you so much. See, we know the people. We know our top fans or our top viewers. So when I get you through the comments, I will appreciate and recognize your presence. All right. So keep writing. And when you do that, let us know where you're watching us from. So Annie Dawn, you're saying, when is African leaders stand out to see health of their citizens as a number one priority than the so-called saving lives and property? Now listen, Annie Dawn, I know you're talking and you're from Nigeria. Biafra, I don't know if you're Biafran or I don't know, but the Nigerian health workers there were on a strike. I think it ended this morning, and I don't know, I think since the start of coronavirus cases in Nigeria, there has been a number of attempted strikes there by health workers, because the last one was because they lacked the PPEs, and the front lines, and a lot of deaths have been recorded by the health workers there in Nigeria. So this is something very important. So apparently it has been it has been dealt with, and now they're back to work since this morning. So that is a good thing. You don't want people on the front lines exposed like that. Who will treat the rest of us? So we need them protected. So in Nigeria there, they had said they'll go on a strike, I think, which they did, but since this morning it has been called off, and I think they got whatever they needed. So thank you so much. So now listen, there was this other story, yes, of the things that happen in this continent sometimes baffles me. All right. So the former president of Ivory Coast, his name is Henry Konan. So Henry Konan was a former president. He was president between 1993 until 1999, and then he was overthrown by a coup. Right now, he's 85 years old. So at 85 years old, Mr. Henry Konan, the former president of Ivory Coast, has sat down, and in all his wisdom and in all his retirement that he's been enjoying all this time, he's coming out and he said, you know what, at 85, I still have the strength. At 85, I still have the tenacity. At 85, I still have what it takes. At 85, I still have a lot to give to this country that I once was the president. So he's coming back for another election there that is slated for, I think, towards the end of this, in October, as Ivory Coast is supposed to be going to the elections. Remember, earlier in the year, President Alassane Ouattara had indicated his intention of wanting to change the constitution. I think after some pressure from international community and a few protests that we saw there in Ivory Coast made him change his mind. But he wanted to change the constitution and give himself a third term. And then later on, he came out and said, no, he will not do that. So now, a former president, Konan there, Henry Konan, is coming back and saying, at 85, I think I still have the energy to come and lead the people of Ivory Coast. And I'm sitting here thinking, how ridiculous is this? You were once a president, and on top of that, and I have nothing against age, but 85 years old. Have you seen Paul Biya, the president of Cameroon? He's 87. The guy can barely hold himself, because 85, you're quite fragile at 85. You're not able to execute your responsibilities as head of state as flexible and as quickly and as sober as you're supposed to. So that will be a disgrace, or not a disgrace, but a disadvantage to the country. And the fact that he thinks that he can come and lead Ivory Coast, again, he was the president from 1993 to 1999. So this is what he said, that he will deploy the potential of young people. Why don't you just leave young people to lead there in Ivory Coast? Why do you have to come here at 85 years old, run for an election, and now bring the younger people to work for you? Is it so difficult to get a younger person in Ivory Coast to lead the people of Ivory Coast? Why does he think that recycling of a leadership is something that would work for Ivory Coast? I don't know. Maybe the people of Ivory Coast would love to have him back, but I think that will be left for them to decide. So I'll be watching these elections. So Mr. Henry Konan there coming back. He is, of course, octogenarian, former President Henry Konan coming back to run for office. And, he says he's excited. Now the race will be hard to call. Political analysts there are saying, because we also see Guillaume Soro, the former rebel leader and presidential candidate. He's also come back. Was convicted in absentia of embezzlement, but he says he's running for this election. And also we know, who is that? Laurent Gbagbo, who now, remember, he was facing charges at the ICC, and I think he was, his charges were dropped. He was not found with any charges that warranted him to be, to be jailed there at the ICC. So he's coming back, and he had said that he will run. Of course, he has not come out and made it very clear whether he will decide to run again. Laurent Gbagbo, who also suffered from a botched election there, that saw Ouattara come over and take. Why can't he just go and relax? You already got into trouble, Mr. Laurent Gbagbo. Why do you still want to come back and look for more trouble? And Mr. Konan there, you already had the opportunity to lead the country. What is wrong with our leadership here in the continent? Yeah. Why can't we just retire in peace? Once you've served, that's it. It's not a private entity that you have to keep coming back. Why can't you just go on and be a productive member of the society and just, share your counsel when it's needed, and the wisdom and the experience that you have gathered over the years as the president? You still want to come back, and look for more trouble. Like for the case of Laurent Gbagbo, I'm sure the international community shall be looking at him and to see how he will carry out his his campaigns and things like that. Because remember, his case is not fully closed. It is still open-ended, and even right now, he's still under house arrest in Belgium. They said the cases were dropped, but he was not allowed to travel outside of Belgium. So he's there. All right. So why would he want to come back and again be part of these elections that got him in trouble? And he already led, Ivory Coast there before. And also this President Henry Konan. Why is it so difficult for us to give way to new leadership, to give way to new ideas, to give way to new fresh blood who might come and change our lives? We're so used to a certain people when it comes to political dynamics in our African countries, until it's so difficult for us to accept that actually somebody else can come and give us the leadership that we deserve. So we become very complacent with people who don't even mean well for our lives. And that is the tragedy of Africa there. And so, yes, Ivory Coast octogenarian former President Henry Konan will run for office again in presidential elections in October. He is 85 years old. No. And it's not his age. I'm not against old people. But I'm just saying he already was a president between 1993 to 99. How many years is that? That's enough. Go retire. Enjoy the wealth that you accumulated when you were the president, and I'm sure stole even others. Go have a rest and let new people take over and see if they'll propel the country to heights of, better heights. Okay? All right, but that is just my thought. Giovanni Henry, you're saying, how can imposter being ruling Nigeria? Africa is a joke. Kanin, now you're saying, my sister, for Africa to play a major role at world stage, Biafra independence is needed urgently. And did you hear who is that person? What is his name? He came out and said Nnamdi Kanu, he called him other names, I can't see them here, the former Niger Delta militant leader, Asari Dokubo. He's saying, Nnamdi Kanu is not the change you people want. Nnamdi Kanu is not the person you want to be leading, the agitation for Biafra land. He's saying that Nnamdi Kanu is seeking to divide Biafrans along religious lines, and is saying, according to what he said, very serious allegations that he made, that Nnamdi Kanu seeks to make Biafra land a Jewish state. So anybody who is not Jewish, if you're Christian or Muslim or any other faith, then most likely you will die. Those are very unfounded allegations, I believe. But hey, Israel Williams is saying good afternoon. Greetings from Biafra. Good afternoon to you. And greetings from Turin, Italy. Okay, Giovanni Henry, thank you. And I hope that you're safe. I've seen Italy has opened up and things are slowly coming back to normal. So that is a good thing there. So can we talk about South Sudan before we leave here? South Sudan Opposition Alliance is divided over the recent deal that allocated Jonglei State to the coalition. Now the chairperson of the Secretary General, I don't know why I say off, initially I also say that, but the chairperson and the Secretary General have both issued conflicting statements regarding the new deal on the allocation of states. Now this, sometimes as South Sudan, I don't know, I'm just worn out sometimes. The things that they're focusing on during this time, you would think there's no crisis there in South Sudan. First of all, the figures there of COVID-19 are going up. The government preparedness is really wanting. So that should be the number one priority right now for South Sudanese leadership. Second of all, I don't know why the state allocation is like the do or die of the whole, nation of South Sudan. And the things that they choose to fight for, and the timing is just off. We were having this conversation in the morning, apparently what is quite apparent in the leadership of South Sudan is the lack of willingness to really find a solution and a lasting peace for the people and the country of South Sudan. So now they're fighting over states, and the opposition is not very happy. The alliance that was given the Jonglei State there is not very happy. So now what? It will be a back and forth, and then what? What is important for South Sudan? What is important for the people of South Sudan? What should be the priority in that country right now? With a crisis like coronavirus, there are not even enough beds. The last time I checked, and I've not seen any updates, the government of South Sudan had like 24 beds prepared to take care of COVID-19 cases. And as we speak, let me just get you the numbers there in South Sudan. It's about 1,882. And 36 people have died. Recoveries is at 122. So the majority of these people needs healthcare attention very, very quickly. And yet we're here worried and arguing about states. The priorities of the leadership and the people on the forefront in South Sudan is just upside down. And the sad part is it has nothing to do with the change and the stability that the people of South Sudan want to see in their country. As they keep fighting about these stupid states, there are people in South Sudan who are languishing in refugee camps, who are just checking their clock, wondering, when will it be time for us to go back home? When will it be time for us to go and start rebuilding our lives, rebuilding our local economies, rebuilding our villages? When can we return home? Over 2 million South Sudanese are in refugee camps in South Sudan and across Kenya and across Uganda. And we are going to fight about states. Are you serious? We still have the leadership of South Sudan asking for food donation for refugees in South Sudan instead of asking for ways to take these people back to their homes to start rebuilding their lives. You're still happy having your people in South Sudan in refugee camps in those deplorable conditions, and you call yourself a president of a country, and you call yourself a coalition partner and you call yourself a minister or whatever position you are there, an army general, and you're happy, and you sit there and your priority is fighting against state and which state was given to who and what happened, who did not get what does that have to do with the South Sudanese who is living in deplorable condition in a refugee camp? How is that even going to change their lives? When we are hearing cases of soldiers who were in the cantonment areas, leaving the cantonment areas because they don't have food, and the conditions there are rough. So they're leaving with their guns and they're melting into the communities. They'll go there and they'll form other militias on behalf of these leaders. You have that, and you're still fighting over states. Those are the statements you're coming out to make. I'm waiting for somebody to come from SPLM, SPLM-IO, SSO, whatever, all these parties there in South Sudan. I'm still waiting one of those coalitions to come out and hold a press conference and address this matter of child soldiers in the, in the camps there who are training to become South Sudan's army. I haven't seen. So the priority of the people and the leadership there in South Sudan is just upside down. I do not understand how states will be the most important thing that they would want to address right now when they have major urgent issues they're supposed to be addressing that are affecting the majority of the population there, the people of South Sudan. I'm baffled every time I read news from South Sudan. Now they're not happy with the state they were given. Why are you not happy with the state of insecurity in that country? The rapes that are happening, the children that are being recruited into militia. Why? That should make you mad enough to come out and agitate for change, but you're fighting about states. Okay. All right. Okay, let's just move forward because, yes. Kemugisa Franklin, thank you so much. You're watching from Uganda. John Clark, nice to see you. Karibu Sana, thank you for watching. Moses Godwin, you're seeing Freedom for Biafrans. Yes, all right, okay. So, of course, the chairman of African Union, Musa Faki, has come out and urged President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta and opposition groups to work together to end the political crisis in the West African country. I'm just surprised that Mr. Faki, he hardly talks about things that happen and affect this continent. A lot of atrocities have happened, and, African Union usually chooses to be silent about a lot of things that happen in this continent. So I'm surprised that Musa Faki has now come out and is urging, the Malian president to come out and end this crisis in the West African countries. West African country. There have been protests from last week calling for President Boubacar Keïta to resign because of the increased insecurity in that country. Boko Haram has even kidnapped opposition leader there in Mali. It's ridiculous. And they did that just towards the election. And President last week came out and said, you know what, the opposition leader is very well where he is. How does he know? Does he communicate with Boko Haram? Because he had also suggested that it is time that Malian government, he wanted to extend an olive branch to the militant group to sit down and have a conversation with them. What are you talking about with a terrorist group? And I think that is the same environment that is happening in Nigeria, and we have to keep talking. I don't know if I'll sit here and have diaspora dispatches and talk about African news and not bring up the issue of Boko Haram and the killings it is carrying out in Nigeria, because we have to talk about it. We have to keep bringing to the attention President Muhammadu Buhari of what is happening in Nigeria, because it's not right. Boko Haram has taken over lots and parts of Nigeria and is just running a mockery of a government of President Buhari. You do not negotiate with the terrorists. You don't do that. But that is what is happening there, in Nigeria, and that is what is happening there in Mali. And so Malians have had it. They've had enough deaths that has been happening through Boko Haram and a lot of corruption. They've had it, and they're saying President Keita, you have to go. And so they have been protesting, a lot of protests last week. And now we see Musa Faki come in and say, President Boubacar Keita, go and speak to the opposition leader, opposition, and just find a way to work together. Malians are saying enough is enough. If you cannot, ask the president of a country, provide us and assure us of our security, then you have no business leading any country. Your first job as the president of any country is to protect the lives of the people who have, trusted you with the leadership. President Boubacar Keita has failed over and over again. President Buhari has failed Nigerians over and over again. In Kenya, we have had the same challenge with the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. But the government have shown its willingness to fight Al-Shabaab. They have beefed up our intelligence operations in this country. So Al-Shabaab is not running games the way it used to a few years ago, where they used to catch us off guard. It has beefed up security because President Uhuru Kenyatta understands if anything else fails, protection of the lives and the properties of Kenyans and anybody in this country is his first responsibility as the head of state. He understands that very well, and he will do that, and he is supposed to do that at any cost as the head of state. I don't see the same vigor in a lot of our African leaders in this continent. Has President Uhuru Kenyatta gotten it right all the time? Of course not. But he tries. There's a willingness. All right? But when you go to Nigeria, look at what is happening in Niger. A whole 92 army killed in one go with Boko Haram. Look at what is happening in Mali and other places there. So people are having enough of that, and they're saying enough is enough. If you cannot protect us, if you cannot do what you're supposed to be doing as a head of state, then you have no business calling yourself a president of a state, all right? So thank you so much. I think I've said my piece. It's time to go now. It's time to go. Chol Makor, you're saying Western Africa will be free when they come together. They will never come together. There's a lot of politics that goes in there. You have no idea. And Collins Ekene, you're saying, Doctor, please invite. All right, I'll tell him. Godson Chukuma, you're saying, God bless you. You're doing a good job. Thank you so much. And, we're here to have our own conversations as Africans, yeah. So we encourage that. So keep writing, Collins. I'll pass that message to Dr. Matanga and Samuel Lay. You're saying Biafrans must be free. Period. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And Asari Dokobo and Dondi there and the rest of you. You're not very happy with those sentiments by that leader, that former militant. Okay, it's time to go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you here tomorrow for another edition of Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Muguto. It was a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.